how do you write to an audience that is actively comparison shopping? One of the most dangerous things that copywriters do is approach every page with the same mentality. Oh, the framework is awareness, interest, desire, action, or the framework is problem, agitation, solution, without considering the context and the awareness level of the audience coming in. So how should you change your approach? What specific tactics can you use when you know that your leads are actively comparing their options? Now, these are people that already have passed through the stage of realizing that they have a problem. So in the case of Unioncrate, they're a supply chain management and demand planning software. They have multiple different products within their tool suite. I have another video on YouTube where I talk about the challenge of, on their homepage, how do we cater to multiple audiences without alienating either of them. So you might be interested in that video, especially if you offer multiple services or you cater to different audiences. That might be interesting for you. But bringing it back, on the product pages for Unioncrate, something that we knew was that the people arriving here weren't arriving here and learning about demand planning, for example, or operations management for the first time in their lives. By the time they were seeking out Unioncrate, they probably had a short list of solutions and they were trying to check the boxes. So how do you write to an audience like that? How should you change your approach? What tips and tactics can you take into your work? I'm going to show you that in Unioncrate. But before we get there, the question you probably have is, how do I know if my audience is actively comparison shopping? There's some ways and some data points you can look at. The first is, if you've got Google Analytics or similar set up on your site, you can look at the types of queries that might be bringing people in. For example, are they looking for queries with qualifiers like best or most affordable or most efficient or highest rated? That gives you a sense that they've already passed through that pain stage where they would be searching queries more like how do I, or just the pain, like supply chain too slow or that sort of thing. So it tells you that they've passed through the pain stage, and now they're actively looking for options of a certain type, or they're looking to find the best or most ideal fit for them. So that's one place you could look. Another place you could look is in your chat logs if you're running chat on your site, and see what types of questions you're getting most often. Are people saying things like, how are you different from Sin7? How are you different from Fishbowl? How are you different from X competitor? Do you have this feature that this competitor has? So that would be another way of identifying, okay, the leads coming to this page, if the bulk of the communication we're having is on that level, that could be a clue. Another way is to interview your customers and get a sense of what their customer journey looked like and where along that journey they found you. So this could be as simple as surveying and new customers, asking them what other solutions they considered and seeing, did they consider any, or did they just find you first? And that's one self-reported, not always entirely reliable way, but one way of getting a data point around that you can triangulate with other data to kind of figure this out. You can also interview them and ask them again, what was your buying experience like? Where did you start? How did you realize you had a pain? Where did you find out about our solution? When you were considering our solution, what did that process look like? And let them talk and let them explain, oh, well, we looked at this competitor, and that's when we came to your site. So you can ask questions like that to kind of help bubble this up and surface this. But generally, the more sophisticated the lead or the more mature the space, oftentimes, especially in software, for example, people have already passed through that pain stage. And so now they need to understand why you might be the best fit for them. And I want to show you some simple tactics, one in particular that you can deploy, and it's a structural change to your site and also sort of a mind mapping exercise. So if we put our shoes into our feet into the shoes, or put our shoes into someone sounds just terrible. Please don't put your shoes in anyone. If we put our feet in the shoes of someone coming into the site who's in comparison mode for Unioncrate, I want to show you how we structured a product page to cater to this audience. So on the operations management page, we know at this point, people know about the different alternatives that they have. So the hero is your entire supply chain at your fingertips. I give them about 50 different iterations that they're going to try and test and work with over time. And then we get the why out of the way, so it's all really accessible. That implies a lot, ease of use, and so on. And then Unioncrate brings your sales, purchasing, and inventory into one place, automates the manual steps you waste hours on, and gives you a simple way to control everything. Okay, so this is good. This is a value proposition. But for someone who's in active comparison mode, I would argue that actually we could probably dial that up and plan to flag in our core differentiators. In this case, though, this gives us a hero section where it does allow us to speak to different audiences. And for a qualified lead, they might just zip past that looking for the differentiators. Anyway, which is where the next piece comes in. So if you really, really, really don't want to completely focus there, and Unioncrate opted for a different, like I say, give them a bunch of options. But if you really want to know, you can put that differentiator right in the top headline. But here's how we handled it in this situation. So we get past the social proof, and right here, this section, rather than agitating pain here and talking about operations management is super manual and super tedious and it can be expensive and there's lots of mistakes and errors, which we do talk about later in the page, and we do address those types of pains, we just jump straight to what's different about Unioncrate. And the reason we can do this is because we have relative confidence that the people coming here are looking for these differentiators, so we don't want to make them dig. We're going to bubble them right up where they can see them. We're going to answer questions with these differentiators right away to color in the context for the rest of the page. And then we're still going to give that other information for leads of different sophistication or awareness levels so that they can still get answers to the questions they have. But in this case, it's a question of priority. And you can see where we didn't prioritize it in the primary hero, and maybe could have, we prioritize it in the literal next section. So here we get right into what we identified as 6 core differentiators for this space. So built for CPG, consumer packaged goods, that's the niche they serve. Very first thing we wanted them to see, because that adds to the conversation of who this is for, if they didn't already notice that all of these were CPG brands, which someone in the industry may be familiar with. Powerfully simple, so a lot of the different products out there are complicated. They are difficult to use. And so we kind of talk about easy to learn and navigate so they can act quickly without fighting an interface. This is a big one for them. $1 EDI connections. This one could almost have been at the very front, but we needed that CPG piece to really anchor them in like, okay, this is definitely built for me. And this kind of sequence of events, it's intentional because we think they're going to read left to right, or in the case of mobile, straight down. And so we think they're going to go, okay, it's for my niche. Okay, it's really easy for me to use. And then boom, now this third one is like blow the doors off. Nobody else does this at all. For some backstory, EDI connections are typically hundreds or thousands of dollars. They cost an insane amount, so that Unioncrate offers this is huge. And there's no setup, document, or van fees. Then we just continue on. So modular and flexible, this is actually a qualifier for the software, so they can start with where they're at and then scale up. No fee onboarding, so a lot of other tools force you to pay consulting fees to do anything with the software and adapt it to your niche and your industry, which again is why we got the big one out of the way quickly. And then quick to implement. So a lot of these solutions are very clunky. They take months to eventually roll out, whereas with Unioncrate, you can go live in weeks. Now, something to be considered if we're really taking context into account is COVID. And we're all sick of hearing about it, but in this instance, people in the supply chain management world are going to want to be able to deploy something very fast, because odds are their pain is exasperated. It's even more really feeling the pinch of, I can't wait months to implement. I need to be live as soon as possible. So something that they could consider would be, say, shifting this up where powerfully simple is and really emphasizing quick to implement. It's all about understanding context. From there, we move on into the rest of the page. But what we've done by doing this is immediately setting aside, okay, these are the features, the big differentiators, so that they don't have to dig for them, so that someone who has a checklist and is going, does it do this, does it do this, does it do this, can answer that very, very quickly because they are more aware. And then beyond that, now they have the opportunity to explore. So go from chaos to control in just a few clicks. And then we start agitating pain right again. So once we've gotten the differentiators out of the way for the audience that really cares about them, now we can agitate the pain for those who might be a little less aware. They're still going to value these benefits. They're still going to go, okay, that's interesting. It will just color the context for the pain that comes after. So when we're updating spreadsheets, so on and so forth, they've got this visual. Make tracking sales orders as easy as checking a status bar. So this is that ease of use kind of blown out a little bit more. And one of the other things I wanted to mention too is why this orientation? Why not the traditional box side by side? And that's because we wanted to keep this visually short. We wanted it to feel concise, but not truncated, not mashed up, not just a little bullet point list. But I will show you in just a moment another example of a site that I worked on where we know they're in comparison mode because the market is very sophisticated, very mature. But in this case, we wanted to provide a little bit more detail. We needed more than just bullets because these people, if we just say easy to use, it's not going to give enough context. So this visual presentation allows it to be short and concise instead of the back and forth, back and forth. No need for needless imagery at this point. The icons do it. They add some visual anchors, and that's enough. Now, very quickly, I'll just show you Investors Club. This is another site that I worked on. And it looks like we have now lost my camera, but that's okay. So this is another example of what I would call a screw it, let's do it section. So this isn't particularly a screw it, let's do it section. A screw it, let's do it section has all of the decision factors someone would need, all of the differentiators presented in one very tight section so that a highly motivated lead, possibly in comparison mode, can just say, screw it, let's do it. So with Investors Club, the quick backstory here is you might see sites like Empire Flippers where you can go look at buying domains, buying online businesses, but they are crowded and they are clunky and the deals there aren't that great half the time. So people know that as the industry norm. And so other iterations of this hero could have been better than, making comparison statements outright. That was one of the things that we thought about testing was we could say things like better than or so on and so forth. And you'll see on the home page, and this is an internal page, the buy page, but we actually do things like that. Skip amateur hour and keep more of your money. And then everything you hate about buying from big brokers solved. And so we do actually cater to the comparison shoppers right off the bat on the home page. Right here again, we have invest with confidence, skip the heavy lifting, ditch the competition, speed up the sale. So all of the differentiators in one concise section, and you can go check out investors.club. And here too, very similarly, we have a kind of screw it, let's do it section, but this is better because it's got the call to action right there. There are reasons we don't have it on the homepage because we're catering to two different audiences and we actually want them to read a little more. But on this internal page, we have buy profitable online businesses without the usual, so comparison statement straight off the bat, because we know they're in comparison mode. We know they have a known entity that they're going to be comparing us to. And then right away, we get all of the differentiators out of the way. We don't bother agitating the pain first. We get these differentiators out, so new deals added constantly, 24-point due diligence reports, which is a huge differentiator for them. Done for you legal doc drafting. Other sites and companies don't do that. Free transfer and post-sale inspection. Other companies don't do that. No fee escrow. And then boom, if I love these differentiators, if I'm sophisticated enough, I can just push create free account and off I go. And then we go into continuing down comparison mode. So because buying a website shouldn't mean dumpster diving, massive fees, or hours of analysis. So we're calling out the weaknesses of the competitors. So these are two different ways to tackle this. One is to just name the differentiators and get that out of the way very, very quickly. And then, for our leads, we're accounting for the fact that some people might be a little less aware. But with Investors Club, we are quite sure that the audience is sophisticated because we're going after experienced investors. So here we continue on. We get the differentiators out of the way, and then we just keep on using statements to draw these comparisons, whether on the homepage, we call out the weaknesses of competitors without actually naming the competitors. So we just say big brokers and so on. Then we blow these out with a little bit more detail. You won't pay a penny for these things, and so on and so forth. So I hope this was interesting. I hope this was helpful. And you can take some of these different lessons, some of these different ways of attacking the problem of people in comparison mode to your own sites, your own products, your own offers. And let me know what you thought. Let me know if you have any questions. But if this baby comes in the next 10 days, so I forget if I mentioned earlier, but that is part of why I've been a little less active as my wife and I are preparing for our second to enter the world literally any day now. But if you have questions or there's something I didn't cover or you disagree with me, I'm happy to chat about that too. You can always send me an email. This is my real email, and I will reply, not always quickly, but I always do reply. Other than that, have a great rest of your day and a great week to come.